All right, Carly, let's go ahead and get started. So thanks to everyone for joining today. My name is David Milano. I'm the CEO of REALTECH in Malvern, PA. Today's webinar is about how to automate SAP change management without the use of Solution Manager. We're going to focus on REALTECH solution versus the SAP Solution Manager scenario called Charm, and talk a little bit about SmartChange versus Charm, and then we'll tell you a little bit about our smart solution for SAP change management. And we also have a connector that would pull Solution Manager Charm data out and into our namespace and our tables for a seamless, let's say, start with our SmartChange transport management solution. We're going to do a demo and show you a little bit about an end-to-end scenario with our tool or process, and then we'll do some Q&A and close it, close the session. So feel free to make this interactive. If you have any questions, please just jump in and ask about the solution, or if you're using Charm today, how it would work with our solution in the future. Want it to be interactive, but feel free to ask questions. So a little bit about REALTECH. REALTECH has been around for over 25 years, started in Waldorf, Germany, but in 2017 was bought out here in the US on a management buyout. We are a reseller channel partner of the REALTECH solutions, or the software solutions. And then we also have our own consulting services practice here, where we really focused on doing SAP migrations in basis for over 25 years. The software solutions that we resell from REALTECH Germany are the SmartChange solution, which has 4 modules. We have a change process management solution, we have a transport management solution, we have a synchronization management solution, and we have an interface management solution. So all these, let's say, modules are really focused on change and transport management, except the interface management solution that will go out and manage all your interfaces. You can create interfaces. If there's a problem with an interface, there's an alert that'll trigger. So really helps with operations of the SAP environments, helps basis manage SAP, so that way they can really focus on optimizing SAP from their standpoint. But today, and I put this quote up there because, you can't use an old map to explore a new world. And I think that is really true today, especially what's happened the last year, right? Everything is changing. If you're doing things manually, you really want to start automating everything. You just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I just saw this quote and I felt it was true to today's times. So let's go in and right off the bat, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between SmartChange and Charm. So we had a client who's out in California who makes chips and technology products do a comparison, and they chose REALTECH SmartChange over Charm. And these are the differences that they came up with, especially from, and we're going to take it in different steps. So especially from an administration standpoint, right? If you implement Charm, you need a full-time administrator. With REALTECH, there's really minimal administration after setup. It's complex, it's rigid. Once it's set up, it runs, it does work. But if you have to change something, it's very hard to do that. So not flexible to the changes in the environment, and it's not well understood within the environment. Yes, it's there, it works, people follow it, but it's really SAP's process not your existing processes that you were using for over 10, 20 years doing SAP change and transport management. So if you adopt SAP Charm, it's a whole new process, new training. We'll talk a little bit about that. But from a REALTECH side, we really come in, we have a short learning curve. We don't rip out or replace anything you're using today. So we have our own architecture, our own user, own RFCs, own namespace that really separates our solution, and it makes it very easy and flexible when you need to change something within SmartChange versus Charm. So minimal administration after setup. We like to say we reallocate basis to more important tasks, or help them ensure the database is up and running successfully, or make sure that SAP they respond to other SAP problems versus then just pushing a button to put a transport in. With our solution, I like to say AAA approach. You'll hear this a couple times throughout the webinar, but it's automation, approvals, and auditing, all from one central dashboard or one system. So the implementation time, that's a big one, right? So for Charm, it's a project, right? Yes, they tell you it's free, it comes with Solution Manager, but you are going into a 6-month project for paying professional services for someone to implement that. Whereas our solution is really weeks, not months, right? We put it in with a couple transports, we run a report, you're up and running, right? We talked about a full-time administrator for Charm. With us, it's basically implementation. We use basis. We have a little bit of security. If you want to develop some user exits, you can within our solution, because we have the templates that come with our tool. But most customers right out of the box are getting 90% of their existing process implemented with automation with SmartChange, which is huge. So you're really seeing a return on investment or return on the value very quickly. Your users are up and running within, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, versus Charm, where you could do the 6 months and still not have the right process working within your environment. So full-time resource, we only use a part-time resource once it's up and running. Many manual transports, many manual transactions for Charm. With REALTECH, you're still going to release the transport like normal from the development system, but on the central dashboard, which can live on any system, dev, quality, or production, you don't need Solution Manager. Since we live in our own namespace, have our own architecture, a lot of our customers really put that on the development system of ECC, because they have all their users already installed there. So they already have user IDs on that system. So they can just create a quick role with our authorization object and be up and running fairly quickly. So for us, when you need to upgrade the system, it's just a couple transports into the system. You could still do transports via SDMS or outside of our tool, but obviously when you're doing an upgrade to an add-on package, it won't be available for a few hours. But with Charm, if you have to do upgrades to Charm or put support packs or packages that connects to all your systems, you would not be able to use Charm as well. So this is just from an implementation standpoint. Going on to the security, which I touched a little bit about on. With Charm, you need roles across all your systems: dev, quality, production, Solution Manager. This client said it was security overload, right? And sometimes security could give them too much access to in the target systems or Solution Manager. So it really becomes a security nightmare. With us, we have centralized roles. You only need a role on the controller, and you need a role on the development system. We have one authorization object with 4 fields. We can restrict activities, so who can approve what, when, and where. Maybe they can approve their own, but they can't approve someone else's, or vice versa. They can approve someone else's, but can't approve their own based on auditing. With us, it's just a simple activity. You set it, you forget it. The solution's it just runs. So end user training, right? So this client said that extensive training was required, right? It's a whole new process. So this company had a 10-year process with a binder that that's when a new hire came on, they would give them that process. This is how it works, right? So it was all manual, spreadsheets, emails, basis, pushing it into the system, lots of back and forth, right? With SAP Charm, yes, it is inside of Charm. They keep track of the approvals and everything, but it's their own process. It's very rigid. It's not easy to understand. With us, we take your process, implement it into our solution. So it's a 1-hour training session for your end users. The experience is already there in basis for pushing the transports. But with our tool, we automate that process. We take your existing process and incorporate it into our solutions to make it very flexible and easy for your users to understand. So it's the existing process, but less steps and automation. So some of the other features that we have within our solution is this connector, right? So if there's companies out there that are using Charm, and I had a call the other day from someone who said, listen, we're using Charm and it's really rigid, it's hard to use. Can you take the existing information out of Charm and put it in your solution in case 5 years down the road, after we switch to you, the auditor comes in and says, hey, we want to look at these transports that are happening, or maybe a year later, we want to look at these transports that happened over when you were using Charm. With our ready to run connector, it's an interface that connects to both Charm and to our solution, pulls out the information, from open and close change requests, and pulls it into our namespace, into its own special tables. That way you can run reports against those, let's say, open or closed changes that happen before you switched over to REALTECH Solution. So we also have, and it's out of the box, an easy integration framework for ServiceNow, Jira, BMC Remedy, Polarian, or any existing change management platform. So out of the box, we already come with that framework, and it's just a little bit of configuration, not customization, to really integrate the two solutions. A customer of ours, Air Products, has been using this ServiceNow and TM integration where they approve in ServiceNow, it triggers down to our solution, and it's basically a parent-child relationship, one-stop shop for all their, not only SAP change management, but their change management across Air Products, which is pretty cool. So with that, we also have some technical checks along the way, right? Collisions and overtakers, critical objects, dependencies, return code forecasting. So this is where you're able to proactively predict if the transport goes into the system and has all the dependencies it needs, before it goes into the system. And you can proactively see if it would fail. And I'll show you that during the demo, if it's what it's missing and what transport that other object is in, so you can put them both in at the same time. System refresh feature. So, when you do a refresh, basically basis overwrites transports, or the refresh overwrites transports from production to QA, and then you need to reapply those transports. Well, sometimes that takes a lot of time, right? And there could be errors that happen. You can miss one. With our solution, we keep track of everything from a central dashboard. So you can just go in, run a report, and reapply those transports that you were overwritten with just a couple clicks. So very easy. Flexible approval workflows. So this is why a lot of our customers really come to us, right? So you'll see during our demo that we rely on projects and destinations. So you could have one project for ECC that has 2 approvals. You could have another project for ECC that has 3 approvals, or n number of approvals. So it's very simple. Once you set up these workflows in the beginning, they just run. And everybody's doing it the same across all your landscapes, across all your teams. So if people are doing SAP change management differently, we always hear BW. Once we come in and implement the software and do some design sessions, we work with your teams to ensure that once we leave, everybody's doing the same process across all the environments, which is for auditing, it's huge, right? It's a checkbox for them that everybody's doing it the same way all the time and it's compliant. Emails, notifications, we send emails on the signature step and then also on the after import to the approvers and to the developers. So they're not waiting for Basis to send an email saying, hey, did it go in? With our solution, as soon as the import happens, we send the email, they know right away if it was a return code 1612 or it was a 0 or 4 and they can go begin their testing right away. So very, very easy from an email standpoint, as well as you can customize those emails to put additional information. Maybe you want a ServiceNow ticket number in there, or you want a tester to hit a button to say that he tested it successfully after he was done. We've done that for several clients. So in simple auditing reports, we all know that auditing is the thorn in the side, right? When they come in and say, hey, we need 10 transports, we need to find out exactly what happened. Make sure the same person didn't create them and approve them, push them into production. It's a lot of hunting and digging through logs, emails, maybe a SharePoint to find out if the change form was filled out correctly. With our solution, you basically highlight the transports or go into a report that you need, put in that information, and you'll be able to pull that up within seconds and export it out or email it to somebody right away. So we had a client who said it used to take them 2-3 hours when they were doing an audit. Once they implemented our software, it was literally 15 minutes, and he waited because he didn't want to let them know how fast he got all the information. So very simple from an auditing perspective. So a little bit about what is REALTECH and what is SmartChange, right? So our solution really comes with, I like to call it 4 modules, right? We have our integration framework module. We have our transport management module. We have synchronization management, which is really the retrofitting piece that integrates with transport management, which is the technical move machine for SAP transports. Sorry, I was taking a drink. And then we have the ready to run solution management or SOLMAN connector, where you can pull out data from Solution Manager, not only Charm, but maybe it's solution documentation, and put it somewhere else into another repository. So with that connector, we built that specifically for one of our partners, and we help clients, let's say, migrate their data off a Solution Manager into different repositories or another SAP system or a NetWeaver stack to help them. So really there's 4 modules to SmartChange. This is the integrated dashboard you'll see into your system. So when we go into our transaction, we have our own transaction on, let's say, the controller system where we keep track of everything. And on that system, this is when you go into the transaction, this is the dashboard you'll see. On the left side, and I'll show you this during the demo, these are called transport levels. It's how we group the systems. And when we release a transport, we always work from the top down. So let's say it goes into quality signature, it's waiting for approvals, it goes into current, it gets imported into quality. Once it's in quality, it moves down to maybe production queue, or if it's ready for its final signature, approvals, goes to signature. A lot of our customers leave it at the queue status because it's waiting to be tested. It's not ready for its final approvals yet, but then eventually they move it from queue to signature. Then it drops down to current. It could go on your weekly schedule or your bi-weekly schedule. Basically, we set up import jobs according to the way that you do changes today. Best practice we see a lot is quality every 15 minutes. Production is once a week. But for CAB meetings or change approval board meetings, everybody takes their laptops in, they log into our transaction, they'll see all the transports sitting at signature here or signature production. They have a quick 15-minute meeting. Does it have everything it needs? Because under this attribute section, we're able to attach things, maybe testing results, or maybe track the ServiceNow or Jira ticket number. So additional information. But it really streamlines those meetings too, because you're able to just go in, everybody sees the same dashboard, sees the same thing, and is working from the same view. But I'll show you the story in the demonstration. So some of the risks of doing a manual process or just not having an automation solution is what you see here. So you could be moving critical objects through your environment, or developers could be doing it, and on the back end, management or basis has no idea what's happening through these systems. They're just pushing changes through, right? So there could be problems that could take down your production system, right? So it's collisions and overtakers, right? Overwriting, where you have a version 1 of a transport that's still sitting in quality, but version 2 got released from development, went into quality, and got pushed up to production. Well, now when version 1 by accident moves up to production, it overwrites that version 2, and you have to rework, right? You got a production problem unexpectedly, and really it couldn't be avoided just by using a solution like REALTECH, where we can show you that proactively when you approve a transport if there's an overtaker situation. So when we approve in our solution, and I'll show you, we check for critical objects, collisions, dependencies. Transport completeness is return code forecasting, and then if there's any code security or performance, we integrate with solutions like Security Bridge or Napsys. And we can do that on the release point, so we can check the code, or even the standard SAP, I think it's Code Inspector, where we can integrate with those tools on the release point to make sure that they have, they pass the test that you guys set up within those applications to make sure that the code is performing okay or is compliant according to your development practices. So just wanted to go through this. If you're doing a manual process, or if you're using Charm, there's a lot of steps, right? And everybody knows these. You have to select the transports, create the list of transports, manual quality checks, import to pre-prod, quality check in pre-prod, test developments. Then you got to test to make sure it's successful, create a list of transports for production. Then you got to do a quality check, import before you import to production, do the quality check again, then finally it's done, right? It's in production, it's validated, it's working. Well, with our solution, we really can eliminate probably half those steps, right? So even in Charm, there's a lot of steps, right? So we can eliminate most of those steps and automate most of those steps. So that way, really, you're doing it in the beginning. I mean, REALTECH's vision of a standard SAP or SAP change and transport management process is that really the only thing that is manual is the release of the transport, and then everything happens within our solution. It has some connectors or web calls or APIs to maybe a testing solution, so that it gets tested automatically, then comes back and can trigger an approval within our solution. Then maybe once after it gets tested, it triggers an email to the final approver. So that's a manual step. But those things between release, when it goes into quality, and then its final approval into production, you can automate all those steps with our solution. So the last thing before the demo, and I wanted to show you was, the last thing before the demo I wanted to show you was talk a little bit about our connector. You've heard me say it a couple times, but basically we use our interface management product to transition the data from your Solution Manager, Charm, into our solution. So we would implement SmartChange, install interface management, do the Charm data migration from on Solution Manager to SmartChange, validate the data, and then archive Solution Manager. So that's if you wanted to archive it. You could keep it for reference, but the key thing to know here is that if you ever switch from Charm, RealTech has a solution, and it's the only one out there. None of our competitors have the solution that you can pull data out of Solution Manager and put it into another solution like ours, or even a SharePoint, and store it somewhere for archiving purposes. So again, we're the only company out there who has this type of solution. So with that, I'm going to dive into our lab system and just show you a quick end-to-end on how SmartChange works. This is SmartChange transport management. Okay, cool. Okay, so I am a developer. You know, I built my program, I built my code, and now I'm ready to release. So I create a transport. I have my code in there. In this example, I'm doing a blank transport with no code. It doesn't matter. And then when you release the task, nothing happens. But when you release the transport, here's where RealTech comes into play. This is something we've done for another customer, where the first thing they do is they can go ahead and implement you know, a pop-up that says this is an incident or change. They can type their number in there. We can make these fields mandatory. You could see in mine they're not. Maybe you want to list the priority, and maybe it has a subtype, different types of it's a different types of change. Maybe it's an admin change or just a performance issue. Then you can put in your ServiceNow ticket number. Oops. And then maybe you have a Jira ticket number too. You don't have to fill this out. This is not our standard pop-up. This is something we implemented for another customer, but a lot of, when we show this, a lot of prospects like this, because they can capture the information right on the release and it gets stored right into our software. We'll show you that. So this is our standard pop-up. So this comes up with what we call projects and destinations. So a project is equal to, let's say, a container or a classification, how you want to classify your transports. These are all freely nameable, right? So you could have an Asia Pacific release, a Latin America release, or you could name it by, if we have different landscapes connected, we would name it by the landscape name and maybe the module, like finance, MM, or maybe if you're replacing Charm, you want to use the same terminology, admin change, normal change. Well, these are freely nameable to whatever your process that you're doing today. So with that, I'm going to release, you have to select a project destination. As a developer, that's all you need to know. And then you hit add to TM, and it releases it right into our solution. So background job runs, SAP standard takes over, releases it. In this example, my EDV system is also my controller. Here, it's been inserted into my transport management system, and it's sent an email out letting folks know that their approval is necessary. And this is what the email looks like. So standard just says, hey, this is the project destination. This is who released it. And this would go to the approver for quality. So now I'll go back into, once I'm in my transaction, one thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, we're fully certified for S4HANA. went through the certification process by SAP. This product itself has been around for 25 years. I'll talk a little bit about customers later, but has over 200 customers globally using our solution. So once you go into our transaction, you have a couple different options. If you're waiting for an approval, you can go into there. Monitor will show all transports from all landscapes, and then once it's in production, it would move to the history section. So let's just go into monitor, and here you'll see the transport levels. And here in my example, I have a 5-box model set up, so I'm able to release from my D2, go to my Q2, and then filter it back up to my production support landscape. So if you have a 5-box model or dual landscape, our solution fully handles being able to move transports all over the place. So one thing, and we've been doing a lot of webinars and talks about, is that handling in-flight projects for your S/4HANA or Suite on HANA projects, you're going to want a solution like REALTECH, because we are basically so flexible that we would hook up to both the landscapes, maybe your ECC landscape and your S4 landscape, and be able to do retrofits and send transports from ECC down to S4 to make your project much easier. And we can talk a little bit more about that if you're interested. But basically, I released the transport. It's in signature here. You can see my transport came into signature. It's waiting for an approval. If I double click on it, I get more information down below. I can see that in this example, I don't have a user group, but down when it goes to production, it's waiting for a release manager and basis to put it into the system. So I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Once I approve it, it drops down to current. There would be an automated job that runs, but in this example, I'm going to show you that a basis person at any time can just push it into the system. Once I generate the queue, it's now added and waiting to be imported, and a 15-minute job would run and push this in. So now it's being imported into the system. It sends an email out, and the email looks like this. So it gives you all the information, the return code, any errors, everything was okay. Even if it failed, it would still give you the information. It works on, successful and non-successful transports. So now it's been pushed into quality. There would be an automated job that would automatically move it down the queue, but I'm going to go ahead and just do that in the interest of time. Okay, so once it's in queue, it's waiting to be tested. Maybe it's going through its testing process. It's not quite ready for its signature steps. Oh, one thing I wanted to show was the information that we filled out on when it was released is all captured and tracked here in the attribute section, the ServiceNow ticket number. So let's say you wanted to do a search on an attribute and you wanted to see the value and say, I want to look for all the transports that are assigned to this ticket. Obviously, there's only one, but you can see that it's very easy to pull that up. If you had 100, it would pull up 100, right? So now it's ready for its final approvals. We'll trigger it down to the signature step, which means emails will be sent. The first one is to the release manager, where they'll go in and they can approve it. Let's say it's that Thursday at 4 o'clock for your CAB meeting. Take it into the meeting. They can approve it. Obviously, I am an SAP all in this. So with our concept of security, we would have segregation of duties. The same person can't do everything that I'm showing you here, right? We would set it up so it's different. And it's based on the authorization object and also the user groups that are assigned to the project destinations. That's how we control who can do what, when, and where within the solution. So now the final approval comes. It's waiting for basis to come in and look at it and say, all right, it's good, push it in. And then the once a week job would come in and put it into put it into the system. In this case, I'm doing it manually, right? So we never stop you from doing changes into your systems. We make sure that you have a process that's adopted through all your teams, and everybody is doing it the same way. And then for auditing purposes, let's say you wanted to go in and see what happened with this request, or you wanted to do a quick report, you could just highlight it, go up to our reporting section, request lifecycle, and get all the information about that request. So, you know, who released it, who created it, who approved it, date and time, the import history, any information, even the attributes are attached there. So one thing I wanted to show you, so that's sort of a quick end-to-end how a transport gets released, how it would go into quality into production. Let me kill this filter here. Okay, so now wanted to show you, so that had no objects, right? With that, had no objects, so couldn't do any checks. But I do have some transports out here that do have objects, right? So let's look at this one. I have and I can tell it has an object because it's under there's a collision there, right? Or if I double click on it, I go under the collisions tab and I can see that there's other transports out here that have the partial or full object in another transport, right? So this is 135, there's 137. Let's go ahead and try to approve 137, which is version 2 ahead of a version 1. And now I get my checks and balances, right? My proactive technical check that says, hey, buddy, you're doing this in the wrong order. There's, you already have one out here that has an earlier date and time that it was released. So the way we do collisions is by reference date and time of release, but also by what object is in the transport, full or partial object in the transport. So in this case, if there's any critical objects, if there's any special aspects like application data being moved or express, we would check that. But we're having a flag on collisions. We also check dependencies, right? So in this case, I can say, all right, well, I see there's a problem here. What I really need to do is either contact this developer and talk to them, or I can just go ahead and approve the one that it told me first, and nothing happens, right? I don't get a check. Approve the second one, and now when I go in and I look at the queue, they're going to be imported into the correct order into the system, right? So this will go in first, then this will go in second. It eliminates overwrites, reworks. They call them collisions, but collisions happen all the time in SAP. It's okay to have a collision. It's not good to have an overtaker situation, right? So because developers work on the same objects all the time, it's just making sure they go into the systems in the correct sequence, in the right order. And that's something our tool really helps with. Another technical, and this will be sort of my last technical check that I wanted to show you, is return code forecasting, right? So if I have a return code forecast, is basically looking at what's in the transport and seeing if there's any dependencies that are missing for this transport to have a successful return code. In this example, I have a package out there and it does have a dependency error. I'm able to click on that. I'll see the information over on the right side that tells me the objects that this is dependent on. And it also tells me, if I click on it, which transport is actually going to create it into the system, right? So this is looking for, as long as 169 goes in before 171, no problem, no technical issues. You're going to have a successful return code. If you just were to import 171 into the system, it would fail. It would have an error, right? So as developers, as technical folks, people who are doing these SAP changes and transports, you have all the information at your fingertips to be able to really dig in to the objects to make sure proactively, before they go into the system, they have everything they need, they're going to be successful, and even testing will be successful, right? So that's just two of the big features within our solutions, overtakers, and then this return code forecasting. I don't believe any of our competitors, even Charm, doesn't even have this feature. So with that, I'll just go back to the slide deck and do a couple more slides, and we'll finish up. So why do customers adopt REALTECH, right? And it's really the flexibility we talked about, the ease of use, ease of administration, but really complete transparency and visibility of all the changes that are moving through your environment. We reduce the risk into all systems, including production, right? Proactive technical checks and balances before movements, showed that during the demo. Instead of doing it manually with spreadsheets, emails, etc., we can reduce your costs and your overhead. Streamlined CAB meetings we talked about, decrease the amount of SAP changes moving to production. We support transport of copies, just like Charm does. If you were to use that, you'd have no problem with our solution. We create a separate project destination. It just goes to quality. When the developers release the transport, they select that. And then when they're finally ready to release that, that transport that goes to production, they release it and select the project destination that goes all the way to production. So we would call it TOC, I believe. Let me just here show you. So in the destinations, when we create them, they're analogous to our transport routes. We would have a TOC destination that only goes to quality. And then when the developer is ready to release, they would select the destination that goes all the way to production here, right? And basically it's an audit rock star, right? So from an auditing standpoint, it takes minutes, not hours for audits. Some of our customers today that use it, you know, a big one is Microsoft, right? For over 7 years, they've been using our solution for all of their SAP change and transport management because it's flexible, it's easy to use. Their developers really like it, and it proactively saves them time and cost, right? Another customer, and this is over in Germany, like I said, we have over 200 customers globally using our solution, but they had the same sort of problem, right? They were doing it manually with emails, Excel spreadsheets, documentation. With our solution, everything is in one, it's a one-stop shop for all this. If you wanted to, let's just switch these, right? So these are some of our customers who are using our tool today. And we'd be happy to have a personal demo, that was the next slide, about your process and talk to you a little bit more in depth. We also have a calculator that you could go on our website. It's realtech-us.com, and you could put in your information about how many transports you're doing today, how many people are in the process, and it'll spit out how much savings you would save if you implemented a solution like ours. And I encourage you to do that. But with that, I'll open it up for some questions. I don't know, Carly, is there any questions out there? I wasn't sure if, or open it up so people can ask any questions they want about the solution.
Hi, Dave. I think we had one, but I think you had answered it. But if you just want to go a little bit more in depth, we had a question. What does it take to decommission Charm and deploy the solution? Weeks, months? Can a client migrate?
Perfect. So yeah, absolutely. So to decommission Charm, really, that's for our, let's say, connector tool. We can pull the data out and put it in our solution in a week, right? The other part of decommissioning Charm is really internal. It's an internal decision. You could keep it there as an archive and never use it again, or you could say, we're not going to use Charm. Let's pull the open and close change requests over to REALTECH and then start using REALTECH. So to just get the data out of Charm and into our solution, we can do that within a week. To use our product, to start using it on one landscape, it's a couple days, right? We put the transports in, create the RFC and user, and you're up and running. So with some clients, what we do is we install SmartChange, do a POC, right? Make sure they like it. Then what we do is they say, okay, let's go do on the POC these 10 change requests over from Charm and pull them in, test that, make sure it works, and then everything's good. And then they take the next step and say, okay, we're going to buy it and we're going to roll it out in a month. We want to have everything out of Charm and into SmartChange within that month, and then we want to get going with your product going forward. So that's sort of a high-level project plan. I hope that answers it. Any other ones, or?
I think that's all we have in the Q&A section.
Okay, perfect. Well, I wanted to give you our information, right? We'd love to talk to you. We're going to follow up with some, a fact sheet and a brochure about our solution. We have a great offering right now for software as a service, right? Try it. You can cancel, 30-day cancellation, put it in a system, do a POC, completely free for 30 days. Give us a sandbox, 3 sandboxes. We can set up a dev QA production, test the software, and I'm sure once you see how it works, you're even going to see more benefits that I talked about today with the solution. And you can reach me at, here's my email, david.milano@realtech-us.com or info@realtechus.com, or go to our website, fill out contact page, and we'll be reaching back out to you. So we hope to hear back from you that you want to hear more about our solution. And I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining the webinar, and have a great rest of your day.